What's going on, guys? Got an awesome video for y'all today. I finally get to tell the story of Mac. He's a deer that I chased for the last 2 years, and I had over 30 sits in for this deer and so many close calls where he had just skirted around the outside edge of me and been within 100 yards of me a couple different times on different cameras, and I was unable to see him for so long, but his luck finally ran out there at the end. But anyway, this is the story of Mac, so let's get into it. This property is out closer to the Alabama state line, and it's pretty weird. Where we live is only about 10 or 12 miles away, and the deer have a very normal rut. They rut, first 2 weeks of November, like they do in most of the country. But when you get to the other side of the county out there, they start rutting more like around the Thanksgiving time frame. This property butted up against some core land that borders the lake that we live next to around here, and so I had core land on the west side of my property, which was where the road ran. So across the road from my property was core land that was huntable, and then behind my property was a small little sliver of core land where a creek ran down to the water. So the first year, I would just run my cameras and feed back there to the core land. I put a couple cameras on the core land just trying to see if I could pick up anything big. I ended up not seeing anything big in the 2021 season except for crippled buck walk through with some crazy rack that went straight up on one side and straight out on the other side. He just walked through this bottom and worked a scrape and moved on, and I never saw him again. I hunted like crazy for him. I tried to put feed out for him. Then fast forwarding to the 2022 season, ran cameras all through the summer there as well. I was pretty much gonna keep cameras on the property but not really hunt there too much until the mid to late November time frame came around. Obviously I have a couple other properties that I can hunt a more normal rut on, and that was going to be my focus. That was until a series of pictures of a bachelor group of bucks. There was one wide 8-pointer that I actually knew from the year before, and there was a tall 8-pointer that I had one picture of, and I didn't know it at the time, but that was Mac. That was my first picture of Mac. I honed in on the property really hard. I put more feed out and hunted it the first week of season, and then I hunted about mid-September once or twice, once in October. And that was pretty much it for the early season. That bachelor group of bucks came through on the 7th of September. They came through again on the 13th, and then they come through again on the 22nd. Mac was only in the first set of pictures. I didn't see him anymore after that. November 25th was the first day that I had gone back. I hunted it morning and evening in the same spot of this little drainage that's right off the road. I had a feed spot there, and I had a feed spot in the very back on the edge of the core land. And so that evening that I was hunting that spot, Mac was at the back feed spot. When I got down the morning of the 26th, I made a big loop around to the core land and checked one of my non-cell cameras that I had. Mac was in there 3 days prior in the afternoon chasing a doe really hard, and he just looked like an absolute tank in there. And at that point I realized how big of a body he had, but honestly at this point I didn't even know that he existed. I'd had one picture of his head from back in September before season started, so it took me a little bit of time to put those two pictures together and realize it was the same deer. So at the same time that Mac is showing back up chasing this doe, I'm also seeing the wide heavy 8-pointer there as well. Once I saw the pictures of him back there, I started taking my saddle to the core land back there and hunting, and I had the really awesome hunt the first time I went in there. That's a video that I posted last year on my channel. If y'all want to go check it out, it's pretty crazy. If it had been Mac, it'd have been amazing. Ended up having a few good hunts in there again. I went in there the morning after that on the 29th, And Mac again went to the feed spot on the back of my property, and he was probably no more than 120 yards behind me. This is where the story starts to get pretty crazy. My buddy Coleman that I go to Kentucky with, he wanted to come hunting, and so I said, yeah, come to my place, and I fully expected to go in here and have a shot at Mac. He's gonna come down here. Wait for him. Shoot, in front of the shoulder. Dude, what the? 5 minutes. We sat there 5 minutes and killed that deer, and I was positive that it was Mac. And when this deer walked up, he has a very similar frame to Mac, and I just assumed it was him. So until that night, when I started checking some trail camera cards, that was when I realized that I don't think this is Mac. They have a very similar frame, but the deer that Coleman shot had a shorter G3 on the right side, whereas Mac was pretty symmetrical all the way around. Didn't see Mac again until the 14th of December, and he was back at the feed spot that Coleman had shot his deer at, and he was chasing another doe at the time. So I had found an area that was a pretty good funnel on the core land on the other side where the deer were coming through pretty good. So on the 17th of December, I went in there and hunted one evening and saw lots of deer on the side of this oak hill. There's a big bedding area up in it, and I had the water directly behind me that kind of funneled all the deer through. The next day was December 18th. Obviously, I went in there that evening. It was a real cold evening. I was hunting out of the saddle, so I moved about 60 yards to kind of to where I was seeing more deer. And I had a really awesome sit with the third 8-pointer that was with the group from back in September. There was the big wide 8-pointer, there was Mac, and then there was this little bit smaller but really big bodied 8-pointer in there as well. And I called him Teddy Bear. So if you want to go check that video out, it's the Teddy Bear buck. And so I focused my efforts there for probably the next week and a half. Hunted it several times. This was when we had the really crazy cold snap the few days before Christmas. Just miserable weather, really windy. And I actually went in there and had a group of does come by me, and I took a doe in there on that core land. Went back in there the next week, checked some of my non-cell cameras, and on the other side of the big piece of core land, I had one video of Mac. I hunted the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, which was the last 4 days of season there, and didn't see any big deer. Saw a few does, saw a few small bucks, and that pretty much ended the season. I hoped that he had made it through the year. He had gotten within 10 days of the end of the year, so I hoped he had lived. So I start kind of feeding again, trying to get inventory of my deer, and lo and behold, he had walked past there the 10th of January, so 2 days after season. And that was all I needed to know right there, is that he had made it through the season. That leads us through, March, April, May, June, July. Never saw a big deer show up. I was running cameras back on the core land sides again. Ended up talking with my dad, and he actually reached out to the landowner, and we knew he had a little block of woods right down the road from our main piece. So our main piece was 19 acres, and then there's a couple lots down, he owned another 11-acre piece. And we ended up being able to lease that from him as well. And so at middle of August, we went in there and checked out the property for the first time. All of it is really thick, but it again backs up to core land. and there's one opening probably 1/2 or 3/4 of an acre in there that he had the farmer keep bush hogged and just kept it an open field. And as soon as we got in there and got on that property, we were like, you know, we got to make this a food plot. So we went in there, sprayed it, killed it. It's already, you know, mid to late August, so we really were in a crunch to get this thing ready for the season. And I went back there and made a feed spot, put up a camera, non-cell camera, and let it sit for a week or two. And wouldn't you know it, I come back, and on August 22nd, Mac had showed up. And he's in full velvet. He's all, you know, has a summer coat and everything, and he just looks massive. He's got a huge barreled chest and real big body, and looks like he put probably 10 to 12 inches on his rack. Yeah, it was super exciting, and I now had my #1 target buck for the year. What's up, guys? Today is Tuesday, September 12th, I guess. Coming out here, putting out some more food. This is a food plot that we sprayed. Haven't had any rain yet, so we haven't planted it yet, so it's pretty much dead. Got a camera and food back here. So I just cleared me out a tree back there, that one back there. Yep, put the saddle in so I can shoot over here in front of me. I can shoot right here where I'm standing. We got some colder temps coming in the next couple of days. Got some colder temps coming in the next couple of days in the afternoons. So hopefully it'll start showing up. Hopefully we can get some rain so that we can plant this food plot. Because I think it'll be money if we can. There seems to be a ton of bucks in the area right here. So hopefully at some point this year, I'll be sticking an arrow through a big old buck in this food plot. I didn't see Mac from August 22nd, the first week I had cameras on the property, until September the 6th. He came through and gave me like 2 pictures with a bachelor group of bucks one morning, and still kept keeping feed out there. We were about 2 weeks away from the season, and he started showing up about a week later. He had come through in the morning, and then he come through around midday, mid-morning, and then he come through in the afternoon. And I noticed that he had done that a couple different times. The opening weekend, he had been there in the morning, had been there at lunch, and I was going in that evening to hunt him. It had rained that day. It was a little muggy. It's kind of still, and I went in there and snuck up in my saddle. Ended up seeing a couple deer, but didn't have Mac come in. I actually had some does bust me on wind. I actually went in there and hunted the next day, which was September 16th. Felt really confident about that day, had a little better wind, and unfortunately this was my run-in with the game warden. Very aggravated right now. I just had the game warden walk down the road here, and waved at him or whatever, come over here. Of course he's yelling, you know, can't be quiet, can't whisper, I'm in here hunting. He asked me, how's it going? And I was like, well, I was waiting on a big deer, but not anymore. So he said he saw my truck in Ringer, which is a boat ramp that has core land around it, and I had a bucket in the back of my truck that had pieces of corn in it. So he was making sure I wasn't baiting public. And I was like, no, dude. I was like, I run cameras in Ringer. I run cameras at this piece I'm close to right here on public. This other piece at the end of the road on public. I said, I have a lease here. I have a lease right down the road. I have a lease in Hogansville. I have a lease in Mountville. I'm just making my rounds, dude. I mean, I run cameras everywhere. I hunt everywhere. Checks my license, all that stuff, you know. Of course, I wasn't doing nothing wrong, but he's like, normally I wouldn't come in here and mess with you, blah, blah, blah. But he's like, I seen that truck at the road. And he's like, that's the same one I saw in Ringer. So I had to come in here and do this. I'm like, dude, you freaking dude. There's still 2 hours left till dark, but that's not cool. So ended up finishing out the hunt that evening, saw a couple small bucks, but they also winded me pretty bad too. And I was just like, man, I gotta quit doing this. This isn't working. My wind doesn't work right for this. So I ended up hanging a stand on the other side of the food plot up there to where a northeast wind that pulled right at dark would be pulling my scent away from the food plot and down into the water. I hunted I think once in early October out of that stand. I snuck in one morning, saw a few bucks early, saw a doe or something like that. Didn't see Mac in there a whole lot in October. He kind of stopped showing up as much. I hunted one more time October 17th. I hunted on the bottom side of the food plot, saw all of Mac's running buddies. I saw like 3 or 4 different bucks. They all worked all the way down to me for the most part, and everyone was there almost except for Mac. I think the last pictures I had of him were like the 28th of October, and then I think I had one picture like November the 2nd or 3rd maybe. I had gone to Tennessee at that point. I'd gone to Kentucky hunting at that point, and then I actually had to go out of town for a couple weeks for another hunting trip. Me and my uncle went to Canada and Kansas, so I was gone for the better part of 3 weeks there. And the last couple days when we were in Kansas getting ready to come home, Mac started showing up again. I got one set of pictures of him walking into the back of the food plot, and then I think it was 2 mornings later, I got a picture of him blurry in front of my camera at the top end of the food plot, like he was running a doe back and forth. So at that point, I was like, I need to get back home. I need to get on this deer fast. I was running non-cell cameras on the original property that I had about a 1/4 mile to the north, and those cameras had been stolen. They had been stolen by the neighbor that lived in between my 2 properties. So I didn't have any intel on the deer being over there on that property because I hadn't had any cameras out. But I was able to get my stuff back and keep those people off my property after that. And so I went in there that same day, fed. It was a Monday, and the next morning he was there with about 5 or 6 other deer. So I knew that evening we had good conditions, and I was ready to go hunt, and I was prepared to make it happen that evening. So that takes us into the final day of November 28th.
Well, good afternoon, guys. Finally made it back home to Georgia after our big trip in Kansas and Canada. Can't thank my Uncle Mark enough for taking me out there on those hunts. That was pretty awesome. It's something to see. Big Mac, or Mac, the big 8-pointer that I call him, that I've been hunting for a couple years now. He started showing up again on this food plot. He cruised past the cell cam at the back here. Saw him on Saturday. Then Sunday morning, he was running a doe right here in front of this camera at the top of this food plot. I could just tell he was like running in the camera and stopping, and he went right back like he was cutting a doe off. And then didn't see him yesterday, and then this morning, or yesterday, I came in here and fed and redid all my batteries and cameras. And this morning I had about 5 does here, a small buck, and Mac was here for about 50 minutes. Came in about 8:25 and left at 9:15. We had this big cold front come through the last few days. It was like 30 something this morning, and I was gonna get up and go, but my sleep schedule was just still kind of messed up. And when my alarm went off this morning at 5:30, I was just like, man, I can't get up, can't make myself do it. But really wishing I would have, because he was right here. And this spot's kind of hard to hunt in the evening. You get a lot of swirly winds. I think the wind is primarily like a west wind today, but being close to this water here, it always pulls northeast right at dark. He came in from the west this morning. He walked right in the corner of this food plot and ate, but he left down here. He went out to the southeast. There ain't no way to tell where this deer's going to come from. So I came in here, brought more feed so that scent would be in here, and I used a little bit of golden estrus, dribbled a little bit out there and over here just to get that scent around there and hopefully, cut down on my scent. Washed all my clothes, sprayed down really good. Hopefully, even with these kind of sketchy winds, I hope that he'll come in here and I can trick him. know what that was. I don't know what happened. It looked like I hit him low. He was at 22. I didn't hear him run way off, but it gets quiet. Oh my gosh. I hope I got him. I saw a ton of blood immediately, just blood everywhere. I think it's good, man. Hey, Daddy.
Hey, buddy.
I got him, I think.
That's what Rachel just told me.
I think I smoked him. I think so. I hit him a little bit low, but he was quartered, and but he dumped a whole bunch of blood, like on this bush right past where I hit him. I mean, he dumped it.
Hello?
Bro, I think I just smashed him. Yeah.
Paperclip?
No, not paperclip. Mac, the Big 8.
Dude. You serious?
Yeah, dude. I think so. And I got in the stand. Wind started to die down. Heard something behind me. Little fawn walks up to my right, walks around me and gives to the food over here. Then a 4-pointer's behind her, but he turns and goes down to the back of the food plot to my right. I'm sitting here. This doe's been out here like 5 minutes, and I like hear a little something in front of me, and I look straight out in front of me about 50 yards, and I just see like a rack move, and I was like, ooh, that looks like a better deer. And I was like, but it really don't look big enough. And he just stood there, and I like eased my binoculars up and looked at him, and he turned his head, and I was like, oh my God, it's him. And then so he like had turned and walked to me a couple steps, like closer to the food plot, and I heard a deer coming up behind me, and it got pretty close to my tree, and then it turned around and took off running. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, please. I was like, because the wind swirls here so bad. Like the wind pulls northeast down to the water anyway, but the wind direction today is like a west or like a southwest or something. It's like blowing dead opposite. And I was like, dude, this deer has to get here quick, because if he stands there long enough, he's going to win me. Like, there's no way. All right, guys, I just got my stuff down, got all out of the tree here. Walk over here to the other side of the food plot and see what the first bit of blood looks like. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I can see it from the tree, but I didn't know for sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a ton of blood. All that blood. Oh yeah, look at that going down through there. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a lot of blood. That looks like when I shot Tank right there. That is dumping. Oh man, Dad needs to hurry up. I'm waiting on my dad to get over here. Daddy finally made it here. It's only about 15 minutes, but it took way too long.
Big in the video.
He looks huge, don't it?
He looked huge, buddy. Awesome job.
I think we got him.
You think he's down?
I think so.
You have blown a hole. You have blown a hole through him.
That's a monster blood trail.
I mean, you can just stand here.
Is that a piece of something right there? That's like part of his lung or something. Right there.
Yeah, big chunk.
Big chunk of his lung. Hey. Yeah, must have bent those blades where it went in, but it looks pretty good. Dang. Everything is bloody.
You see him? Oh, there he. Oh, I see his horn sticking up, buddy. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Dude.
Oh man.
Walker, that's a stud, buddy. Walker. Hey, he's a beauty, buddy.
Look at that deer. Man. He stinks. Oh my gosh. That's Mac. That's Big Mac that I've been hunting for 2 years pretty much. And on, I don't know how many different properties. A few different properties and some core land too. Golly. Can't believe I finally killed him. This deer, I was just saying it yesterday, this deer's the luckiest deer I ever hunted. I ain't kidding. He just, every move I made, he was ahead of me. And man, I just couldn't ever get anything on this deer. He's beautiful. He was very mature last year. He was probably a 4-year-old at least last year. And this year he just got a tank of a body, just huge. Probably at least 5, I would say. I have so many thousands of pictures of this deer. It ain't even funny. Golly. He showed up here in daylight so much and so often, and I thought for sure it was gonna be super easy to kill this deer. But like I was saying in the stand, this food plot, the way it sets up, there's a ditch on the east and then the water on the west, and he can just get the wind from no matter where he comes into it, and just so hard to hunt. And I can't believe that. I can't believe we got him. This deer gave me fits. He's a big one.
He's a stud, buddy.
Yeah.
I know you work hard, and I smell him from here.
Yeah, yeah. All right, guys, we got him back out here to the food plot, just taking some more pictures of him before we head back to the house. But a couple things I didn't talk about was when I got back over here from my long trip where I'd been gone for 2.5 weeks, I guess, came and checked on my cameras and stuff yesterday, and my other property over there, some of the cameras had been stolen. So I had to spend some time knocking on some doors, figuring out who it was and getting my cameras back. And then also I had the neighbor's 2 German Shepherds. They were in here all the time, and I kind of thought they had ran him off. I didn't get almost any pictures of him in November, maybe a handful before this past few days, and kind of thought he was out of the area and maybe not gonna rut here, maybe had moved over on my other spot that you know, I had cameras on but had been stolen. So I didn't really know what was gonna happen with him, or where he was gonna be, or where he was gonna go. And luckily my cell cam here kind of told me that he was still in this area and chasing some does here and feeding and all that. But yeah, just very fortunate, and just can't believe that it came together. So many of these deer we find in the summer and plant food plots and run cameras and set stands and chase and hunt, you know, 15, 20, 30, 40 times in a year, and it doesn't work out. But it worked out on this big boy, so it's very rewarding when you find a deer like this, and it takes you a couple years to get on him and to put it all together. It's a feat, no doubt, to be able to put your hands on a deer, you know, this mature, you know, 5.5 year older Georgia whitetail, and especially do it with a bow. It's just it's one of the hardest things there is to do in the outdoors, I feel like. And yeah, we had the odds stacked against us the last few weeks here, so just very thankful to get this deer on the ground. And like I said, glad to have my dad here. I didn't say anything about it, but he had a little bit of an accident a few weeks ago, and he's fine, you know, broke some ribs or whatever. But you know, I'd be lying if I say I didn't, you know, think we might not be doing this, you know, trailing deer and stuff again. It could have been like that very easily. So glad he's here with me, and glad we got this deer killed and got to track another one. That's what we live for. So thank y'all for watching. Appreciate it.